My name is Lincoln, a 32-year-old software engineer from Boston who's been chasing entrepreneurial dreams since college. I built a multi-million-dollar tech startup despite my family refusing to invest a single penny in my vision. The real shock came when they funded my cousin's failed restaurant venture instead. But nothing prepared me for the moment my parents claimed they deserved ownership of my company. If you're watching this from a place where family and business mix drop, a comment below, hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I fought for what was rightfully mine in a battle that nearly tore our family apart. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class home in the suburbs of Boston. My parents, Thomas and Margaret, owned a local hardware store that provided us with a stable but modest lifestyle. My father built his business through what he called honest work, selling tangible products people could hold in their hands. He never quite understood the digital revolution happening around him, often dismissing tech innovations as passing fads rather than the future. From the age of 12, I found myself drawn to computers in a way my parents never comprehended. While my father wanted me to learn about inventory management and customer service at the hardware store, I was teaching myself coding languages and building basic programs on our family computer. My mother would frequently tell me to go outside and get some fresh air, when she found me engrossed in coding projects that would sometimes keep me up until dawn. By high school, my passion for technology had only intensified. I founded our school's first coding club and won the regional science fair with a student information system I designed to help organize class schedules and assignments. My parents attended the award ceremony, politely clapping but later questioning why I couldn't apply my obvious intelligence to something more concrete and stable. Computers are fine as a hobby, Lincoln, my father would say, but real business involves things people can touch and see. Despite their reservations, my aptitude for programming and software development earned me a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. This was a turning point. The validation I needed to believe my path had legitimate potential. My parents were proud of the scholarship, but still viewed my chosen field as a risky proposition. During my college years, I met Ryan, my roommate, who shared my entrepreneurial spirit. Together, we spent countless hours developing small applications between classes and assignments. During our junior year, we created a productivity app that gained modest traction on campus, eventually generating a few $1,000s in revenue. I remember calling my parents, excited to share our success. "That's nice, son," my mother said. "But when will you get a real job with benefits and stability?" Their reaction stung, but I wasn't entirely surprised. In their world, success meant predictability and tangible products on shelves, not lines of code and digital solutions. After graduation, I did what my parents expected. I took a corporate position at a major tech company in Boston. The salary was good, the benefits excellent, and my parents finally seemed satisfied with my career choice. But inside, I felt my creativity and ambition slowly dying. For 3 years, I played the part of the dutiful corporate employee during the day, while secretly developing business plans at night. During this time, I met Natalie, a marketing professional who understood my entrepreneurial ambitions in a way my family never did. We connected at a tech networking event, and she quickly became my biggest supporter. "You have that spark, Lincoln," she told me one night as I showed her my latest project. "Don't let it burn out in a cubicle." Her belief in me was refreshing after years of my parents' well-intentioned but discouraging pragmatism. Natalie didn't just offer emotional support. Her marketing expertise provided valuable insights that helped refine my business ideas. As my relationship with Natalie deepened, so did my resolve to break free from corporate constraints. I began saving aggressively, cutting expenses wherever possible to build a financial cushion that would allow me to eventually pursue my startup dreams. My parents noticed the change in me, the late nights, the declining invitations to family events, because I was working on something, the growing distraction whenever business topics arose at family gatherings. They worried I was burning out from corporate pressure, never suspecting I was building the foundation to leave that world behind. On my 31st birthday, Natalie organized a small dinner and gave me a leather-bound journal with a note inside, "For the next chapter of your story." That night, looking at the empty pages waiting to be filled, I made my decision. It was time to stop living to please my parents and start building the business I'd been dreaming about for years. I knew the conversation with my parents wouldn't be easy, but I never anticipated just how dramatically their response would alter our relationship and set us on a collision course that would test the very foundation of our family. After years of corporate experience and countless late nights researching market gaps, I had identified a critical need in the small business sector: affordable, user-friendly, cloud-based security software. Most small businesses couldn't afford enterprise-level security solutions, but were increasingly becoming targets for cyber attacks. The available budget options were either too complicated for non-technical business owners or woefully inadequate in actual protection. My concept was elegant in its simplicity. Create a security platform specifically designed for small businesses, with intuitive interfaces, automated threat detection, and straightforward implementation that wouldn't require an IT department. I called it SecureSmall. I spent 6 months developing detailed business plans, conducting market research, and building financial projections. The numbers were compelling. Small businesses were losing billions annually to cyber threats, yet existing solutions weren't reaching this vulnerable market segment. With my vision clear and research complete, I made the leap. I submitted my resignation letter at the corporate job, giving a standard 2-week notice. My boss seemed genuinely disappointed to lose me, but understood the entrepreneurial itch that needed scratching. "If it doesn't work out, there's always a place for you here," he offered, which I appreciated but was determined never to need. To build the technical foundation of SecureSmall, I reached out to Marcus, a brilliant programmer I'd known since college. While I had solid coding skills, Marcus was exceptional, the kind of developer who could solve problems others didn't even recognize yet. He had been working at a prominent tech firm, but was feeling similarly constrained by corporate limitations. "This actually solves a real problem," Marcus said after reviewing my business plan. "I'm in, but we'll need funding to do it right." My calculations showed we needed $75,000 in seed funding to build a proper prototype cover, initial marketing costs, and sustain us until we could attract paying customers. Marcus could contribute some savings, and I had about $30,000 set aside, but we were still short. That's when I made what I now recognize as my first major miscalculation. I decided to approach my parents for investment. Despite years of their skepticism about technology ventures, I convinced myself that my corporate experience, detailed business plan, and market research would finally prove the legitimacy of my vision. I chose Sunday dinner at my parents' house to make my pitch, arriving early with professionally printed business plans and a tablet loaded with my presentation. My mother noticed my unusual formality immediately. "You seem nervous, Lincoln. Is everything all right at work?" "Actually, Mom, I've left my job to start my own business, and I want to talk to you and Dad about an investment opportunity." The flash of concern on my mother's face should have prepared me for what was coming, but optimism overrode my better judgment. After dinner, I launched into my presentation, explaining the market gap, showing competitor analyses, and walking through financial projections indicating potential returns of 4 to 6 times their investment within 3 years. I emphasized the growing threat landscape for small businesses and how our solution filled a critical need in an expanding market. As I spoke, my father's expression hardened from polite interest to thinly veiled disapproval. My mother kept glancing anxiously between us, sensing the brewing confrontation. When I finally finished and asked for $75,000 in exchange for 15% equity, the silence was deafening. "Let me get this straight," my father finally said, leaning forward in his chair. "You quit your stable job with benefits to sell something nobody can even touch. And now you want us to hand over our hard-earned money for this computer program." "It's not just a program, Dad. It's a comprehensive security platform that—" "Lincoln," he interrupted, "we've supported your computer interests as hobbies, but real businesses sell real products. Your mother and I built our store through sweat and tangible inventory that customers can see and touch. This internet stuff is too risky, too abstract." My mother tried to soften the blow. "Honey, we're just concerned about your future. Wouldn't it be better to develop this as a side project while keeping your good job? The market opportunity is now, Mom. Waiting means competitors will fill this space before we can establish ourselves." My father shook his head firmly. "The answer is no, Lincoln. We won't throw our retirement money at something we don't understand. If you want to gamble with your future, that's your choice, but we won't fund it." The rejection stung far worse than I had anticipated. Not just because I needed the money, but because after all my years of education, corporate success, and careful planning, they still viewed my ambitions as some kind of irresponsible fantasy. Driving home that night, I called Natalie, my voice tight with emotion. They said no. Actually, worse than no. Dad basically dismissed the entire concept as a childish pipe dream. Natalie's response was exactly what I needed. Then prove them wrong. Their approval isn't a prerequisite for your success, Lincoln. She was right, of course. Marcus and I would need to bootstrap the business, working longer hours and cutting more corners than we'd planned. But perhaps the rejection was a gift in disguise, forcing us to be leaner, hungrier, and more determined from the pre-slice. What I couldn't know then was how this rejection would pale in comparison to what happened next. A betrayal that would shake my faith in family bonds and set us on a collision course toward an even more painful confrontation. 2 months after my parents rejected my business proposal, my mother called to invite me to another family dinner. Trevor will be there, she mentioned, referring to my cousin. He has some exciting news to share. Trevor, 35 and 3 years, my senior, had always been the charismatic one in our extended family. Where I was methodical and somewhat reserved, Trevor was outgoing and quick with a joke. He had a certain charm that made people want to believe in him, despite his spotty track record. Since high school, Trevor had bounced between various career attempts. Real estate for a while then, insurance sales followed by a brief stint managing a gym. Nothing seemed to stick, but he always had another big opportunity on the horizon. My parents, especially my father, had a soft spot for Trevor, often remarking how he really knows how to talk to people, a skill they felt I lacked. Out of family obligation, and admittedly some curiosity about Trevor's news, I attended the dinner with Natalie. We arrived to find my parents' dining room transformed for what appeared to be a special occasion. The good china was out, wine was breathing on the sideboard, and my mother had prepared Trevor's favorite meal. Trevor arrived last, making an entrance as he always did, giving theatrical hugs and loudly complimenting my mother's cooking before he'd even tasted it. After appetizers, he cleared his throat and stood raising his wine glass. I want to thank Uncle Thomas and Aunt Margaret for this wonderful dinner, but also for believing in me. As you all know, I've been searching for the right opportunity, and I've finally found it. He proceeded to reveal his latest venture, a franchise opportunity for a trendy, fast-casual restaurant concept called Fresh Bowl that was expanding from the West Coast. With practiced enthusiasm, Trevor described the restaurant's farm-to-table concept, showing professional marketing materials and franchise brochures. The location I've secured is perfect, right in the heart of the downtown business district. The franchise fee and startup costs are substantial, but the return on investment projections are outstanding. I listened with growing skepticism, noting the vague financial projections and emphasis on brand appeal rather than operational details. But my parents were captivated, nodding and smiling at every claim Trevor made about market trends and growth potential. Then came the moment that felt like a physical blow. To make this happen, Trevor continued, I needed investors who understand real business. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Margaret have generously agreed to invest $100,000 to help launch Fresh Bowl Boston. The room swam before my eyes. $100,000. $25,000 more than I had asked for my technology startup, after years of proven success in the field. I felt Natalie's hand squeeze mine under the table as I struggled to maintain my composure. Trevor raised his glass higher. To family. Believing in family. Throughout the remainder of dinner, Trevor dominated the conversation with restaurant plans, while my parents beamed with pride. When they asked about my computer project as an afterthought, Trevor interjected before I could answer. Lincoln's still playing with his computer games, right? 'Cause maybe you can build me a website for the restaurant. He laughed, and to my dismay, my father chuckled along. After dessert, unable to contain myself any longer, I asked my father to speak privately in his study. Once the door closed, I confronted him directly. You just invested $100,000 in Trevor's restaurant franchise after telling me my business was too risky. A restaurant, in an industry with a 70% failure rate, run by someone who has never successfully managed anything. My father's expression hardened. That's different, Lincoln. Restaurants are proven businesses. People will always need to eat. These internet schemes come and go, but food service is stable. Stable restaurants have one of the highest failure rates of any industry. And Trevor has no experience. Trevor understands people, my father interrupted. He knows how to connect with customers. Shake hands. Look people in the eye. That's real business, not hiding behind a computer screen. The argument escalated from there, with decades of unspoken tensions bubbling to the surface. My father accused me of being jealous of Trevor's people skills, while I pointed out Trevor's consistent pattern of starting projects he never finished. He showed us a real business plan, my father insisted, with a proven concept and franchise support. I showed you a real business plan too, with market research, competitor analysis, and financial projections. For something we can't even see or touch. At least with the restaurant, we know exactly what we're getting. I left my parents' house that night with a rift forming that would only widen in the coming months. The drive home was silent, until Natalie finally spoke. You know, this isn't really about business plans or investment potential, right? What do you mean? Your father sees himself in Trevor, the hand-shaking, back-slapping businessman. He doesn't understand your world, so he dismisses it. She paused. But you're going to prove him wrong. The following weeks were difficult. I threw myself into work with an intensity that concerned both Marcus and Natalie. My motivation had shifted from simply building a successful business to proving my parents wrong, a change that Marcus noted during a late-night coding session. You're obsessing, Lincoln. This isn't healthy. I'm focused, I corrected him. No, you're fixated on showing up your parents and cousin. That's not why we started this. He was right, but I wasn't ready to admit it. My relationship with Natalie began to strain as well, with her increasingly concerned about my single-minded determination. You've missed our last 3 date nights, she pointed out one evening. The company won't succeed if you burn out. Family gatherings became awkward affairs that I largely avoided. My mother would call with updates about Trevor's restaurant progress. The construction, the hiring process, the local press coverage of the grand opening. Each call a fresh reminder of the disparity in family support. The night before Trevor's restaurant opened, I sat alone in our small office space, a converted garage in my apartment building, surrounded by computers and whiteboards filled with code architecture. A text from my mother showed the whole family at Trevor's pre-opening party, champagne glasses raised in celebration. I set my phone face down and turned back to my computer. If family support wasn't available to me, I would succeed without it. But the seed of resentment planted that night would grow into something I never anticipated, setting the stage for a confrontation that would ultimately test the very definition of family loyalty. The rejection from my parents and their enthusiastic support of Trevor's restaurant became the fuel that powered my next 18 months. Marcus and I transformed my apartment garage into our headquarters, setting up secondhand desks and refurbished computers to keep costs minimal. Our walls became covered with sticky notes, workflow diagrams, and motivational quotes, my favorite being, "The best revenge is massive success." Without my parents' investment, we needed alternative income while developing our security platform. We took on small web development projects and consulting gigs, working during evenings and weekends to fund our actual passion. Every dollar earned went straight back into SecureSmall. Our first breakthrough came 3 months in, when Dr. Robert Winters, a local dentist frustrated with existing security options for his patient records, took a chance on our prototype. "I don't understand half of what you're saying about encryption protocols," he admitted after my pitch, "but you're the first person who explained security without making me feel stupid." That single $500 monthly contract became our proof of concept. Dr. Winters' endorsement led to 2 more dental practices signing up, creating a small but steady revenue stream. Each client provided valuable feedback that helped us refine the product. Natalie, despite her concerns about my work-life balance, contributed her marketing expertise during evenings after her day job. She helped craft messaging that spoke directly to small business owners' security concerns without the intimidating technical jargon that dominated the industry. "You're not selling security," she explained, while revamping our sales materials. "You're selling peace of mind and simplicity." This shift in messaging resonated with our target market. Small business owners didn't want to become cybersecurity experts. They wanted protection that worked without consuming their limited time and resources. Life during this period became a blur of 18-hour workdays, instant noodles, and very little sleep. My health began to show the strain. I lost weight, developed persistent headaches, and caught every cold that circulated. Marcus regularly expressed concern about my punishing schedule. "You're going to crash before we even get to market properly," he warned one night after finding me asleep at my keyboard. "This isn't sustainable." He was right, but I couldn't slow down. Every time my resolve weakened, I remembered my father's dismissive tone and Trevor's smug smile. I was determined to prove them wrong, even at the cost of my well-being. The turning point came 9 months into our venture, when Cumberland Regional Bank, with 15 branches across Massachusetts, expressed interest in our solution. Their IT director had heard about us from one of the dental offices and recognized the potential for their smaller branches that couldn't justify full-time IT security staff. The pitch meeting was scheduled for a Monday morning. The previous night, our primary server crashed, corrupting part of our demonstration environment. Marcus and I worked through the night to rebuild everything, arriving at the meeting sleep-deprived but prepared. Despite my exhaustion, the presentation went flawlessly. When Cumberland's IT director asked tough technical questions, Marcus provided detailed answers. When their CFO raised concerns about cost-effectiveness, I presented our ROI calculations, showing how our solution would save them money compared to their current patchwork approach. 2 weeks later, Cumberland signed a contract worth $20,000 monthly, instantly transforming our financial situation. We could finally hire additional developers and a dedicated customer support person. The garage headquarters gave way to a small but proper office space in downtown Boston. Our team grew to 10 employees within the next 6 months. Each new hire brought expertise and energy that propelled the company forward. Our product evolved rapidly based on client feedback, with new security features and an increasingly intuitive interface. A local tech blog published a profile of our company, highlighting our bootstrap success story. The publicity brought a steady stream of inbound leads from businesses that previously wouldn't have given us a second look. Not everything went smoothly, of course. We experienced a terrifying data breach scare when a client reported seeing another company's information in their dashboard, a UI bug rather than an actual security breach, but one that required all hands on deck to fix and explain to nervous clients. The team rallied during these crises, working around the clock when needed, and supporting each other through stressful periods. We developed a strong company culture built on mutual respect and shared commitment to our mission of protecting small businesses. As Thanksgiving approached, my mother called to invite me to family dinner. Trevor's restaurant had been open for 4 months and was reportedly doing well. The thought of sitting across from my cousin while he boasted about his success with my parents' money was more than I could bear. "I'm sorry, Mom, but we're in the middle of a major system upgrade. The team needs me here." Her disappointment was palpable through the phone. "You're working on Thanksgiving. Family should come first, Lincoln." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on me, but I bit back the retort that formed on my lips. Maybe next time. Instead of Thanksgiving turkey with family, I shared pizza with my team as we implemented new encryption protocols. The camaraderie of people who believed in our vision proved more nourishing than any traditional holiday meal could have been. That evening, as others left to join their families, I remained at the office reviewing our quarterly growth metrics. We were now serving over 100 small businesses, with a 97% client retention rate. My phone rang, my mother again. Expecting another guilt trip about missing Thanksgiving, I almost didn't answer. When I finally did, her voice carried an excitement I hadn't heard in months. "Lincoln, you should see the write-up. Trevor's restaurant got in the Boston Globe. They're calling it the hottest new lunch spot downtown. We're so proud of him." As she continued praising Trevor's accomplishment, I stared at our company growth chart on my screen, showing a steep upward trajectory that nobody in my family had bothered to ask about. "That's great, Mom," I replied, the words tasting bitter. "I'm happy for him." What I didn't know then was that this would be the peak of Trevor's success story, and that the coming collapse of his business would set in motion events that would test not only my company's resilience, but the very foundation of our family relationships. 8 months after Trevor's restaurant opened to local acclaim, SecureSmall hit a significant milestone, $1 million in annual recurring revenue. Our client base had expanded beyond Massachusetts to cover businesses across New England, and we were beginning to attract attention from industry analysts. A respected national tech magazine included us in their 20 Rising Stars in Cybersecurity feature, legitimizing our business model in a way that filled me with quiet pride. I sent the magazine to my parents with a brief note. "Thought you might be interested in this." I received no response, which stung but didn't surprise me. Our relationship had cooled to occasional phone calls and declined invitations with my work schedule, providing a convenient excuse to avoid family gatherings where Trevor would inevitably be the center of attention. Then one Tuesday evening in November, my phone rang with my mother's number. I answered, expecting perhaps a holiday invitation I would politely decline. "Lincoln." Her voice sounded different, strained, and shaky. "Are you busy right now?" "I'm just finishing up some work. Is everything okay?" There was a pause, followed by what sounded like a stifled sob. "No, not really. It's Trevor's restaurant. Things have gone very wrong." Over the next 20 minutes, my mother explained the situation between tears. Fresh Bowl had started strong, but began experiencing problems within months. Food quality became inconsistent as Trevor kept changing suppliers to cut costs. Staff turnover was astronomical due to Trevor's management style, which alternated between absent and micromanaging. Health inspectors had cited the restaurant twice for violations. "The franchise company sent representatives last week," my mother continued. "They say Trevor isn't maintaining their standards and could lose the franchise rights if things don't improve immediately." The worst part from my parents' perspective was the financial situation. The restaurant was losing money every month, with Trevor consistently requesting just a little more to get through temporary challenges. My parents had already invested an additional $50,000 beyond their initial $100,000. "Your father and I are worried we're going to lose everything we put in," she admitted. "Trevor says he just needs $50,000 more to turn things around, but we'd need to take out a second mortgage on the house." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication that my assessment of Trevor's business acumen had been correct, concern for my parents' financial situation. And I'm not proud to admit a certain satisfaction that my success was now contrasted against Trevor's failure. "I want to see the restaurant for myself," I told my mother. "Then we can talk about next steps." The following day, I visited Fresh Bowl during the lunch rush, or what should have been the lunch rush. The restaurant was operating at perhaps 30% capacity, while nearby competitors had lines out the door. The decor was already showing where tables were left uncleared, and the single visibly stressed server was struggling to keep up. I found Trevor in the back office, surrounded by invoices and looking haggard. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and his designer clothes had been replaced by a stained Fresh Bowl polo shirt. "Come to gloat?" he asked when I entered, not bothering to stand or offer a handshake. "I came to understand the situation," I replied evenly. "Mom and Dad are considering taking out a second mortgage to give you more money." Trevor ran a hand through his hair, further disheveling it. "It's just a cash flow issue. The concept is solid. We've had some staffing challenges and supplier problems, but another investment will right the ship." I pointed to the stack of invoices. "May I?" Reluctantly, he pushed them toward me. A quick review confirmed what I suspected. The business was hemorrhaging money through mismanagement. Food costs were well above industry standards. Labor scheduling was inefficient, and there were numerous charges for emergency repair services that suggested poor maintenance. "Trevor, this isn't a cash flow problem. It's a fundamental management issue. Throwing more money at it won't help unless you completely change how you're operating." His face flushed with anger. "What would you know about running a restaurant? You play with computers all day. I know business fundamentals that apply across industries. Your food costs are running at 40% when the industry standard is 30%. You're scheduling too many staff during slow periods and not enough during peak times. And why are you paying rush fees to fix equipment that should be on regular maintenance schedules?" "It's easy to criticize from the outside," he snapped. "Not all of us can hide behind a screen and call it a business." I offered to help create a turnaround plan, implementing inventory controls, restructuring staffing, and negotiating with suppliers. Trevor rejected every suggestion. insisting the only problem was insufficient capital. "Just stay out of it," he finally said. "Uncle Thomas and Aunt Margaret believe in me even if you don't." I left the restaurant with a heavy heart, knowing my parents were about to throw good money after bad. I called my father that evening, explaining what I'd observed and recommending against further investment. "Trevor just needs a little more time," my father insisted. "Restaurants take a while to find their footing. Dad, the problems are systemic. More money won't fix poor management. We can't just abandon him now. Family supports family." The irony of his statement apparently lost on him. Despite my warnings, my parents took out a second mortgage and invested another $50,000 in Trevor's failing restaurant. 3 months later, Fresh Bowl closed its doors permanently. My parents lost their entire $150,000 investment plus loan fees and interest. The financial strain hit them hard. My father, at 63, had been planning to reduce his hours at the hardware store. Instead, he was now working longer days to make the additional mortgage payments. My mother took a part-time job at a local department store to help make ends meet. Meanwhile, SecureSmall continued its upward trajectory. We secured $2 million in venture capital funding from a Boston-based investor who valued the company at $15 million, a validation that should have been cause for unreserved celebration. Instead, it was bittersweet knowing my family was struggling financially after backing the wrong cousin. Our team expanded to 35 employees, necessitating a move to larger offices. We landed several municipal government contracts that significantly increased our revenue and visibility. Industry awards and recognition began coming our way, including the New England Technology Council's Innovator of the Year award. Christmas arrived, and despite the ongoing tension, I accepted my mother's dinner invitation. The atmosphere was subdued. Trevor was noticeably absent, having apparently moved to Chicago to explore new opportunities. My father looked older, the lines in his face deeper than I remembered. As we exchanged modest gifts, my mother made a comment that caught me off guard. "It's good to see you doing so well, Lincoln. Some people are just fortunate that way." The implication that my success was due to luck rather than skill and hard work stung, but I let it pass. My father added his own barb during dessert. "I hear you got some money from those venture capital people. Must be nice having others fund your ideas." I nearly choked on my pie. "Dad, we built a profitable company first, then attracted investment because of our proven success." He shrugged. "Trevor just had some bad timing with the economy. These things happen in business." I left that night with a renewed appreciation for the gulf between my family's perception and reality. What I couldn't have anticipated was how this gulf would widen into an unbridgeable chasm when my company's true value became apparent. The 3-year mark of SecureSmall's journey brought unprecedented success. Our valuation had climbed to $15 million, our client base expanded nationwide, and our team grew to 35 dedicated employees. Marcus and I had built something remarkable from scratch, overcoming countless obstacles and proving every skeptic wrong, especially those within my own family. In February, we received an acquisition offer from CyberShield, a major tech corporation looking to expand their small business services division. Their initial offer, $20 million, with Marcus and me retained as division heads under generous 3-year contracts. The offer was legitimately life-changing. After investors' cuts, Marcus and I would each walk away with several $1 million while continuing to guide our creation under the umbrella of a respected industry leader. We needed a quiet place to discuss the details away from the office, so I suggested meeting at my parents' house on a Saturday when I knew they would be running the hardware store. The familiar surroundings of my childhood home seemed an ironically appropriate setting to discuss the culmination of a journey my parents had refused to support. Marcus and I spread the acquisition documents across the dining room table, the same table where my parents had rejected my initial funding request and later celebrated funding Trevor's failed venture. "We should counter at $23 million, Marcus suggested, highlighting sections of the offer. "Their earnout terms could be better too." We were deep in discussion when I heard the front door open. My parents weren't supposed to be home for hours, but apparently they'd asked a manager to close the store. They entered the dining room, surprised to find us there. "Lincoln, we weren't expecting you," my mother said, eyeing the papers spread across her table. "Sorry for the intrusion," I replied. Marcus and I needed somewhere private to discuss some business matters. We thought you'd be at the store all day. My father approached the table, scanning the documents with sudden interest. His eyes widened as he spotted the offer amount on CyberShield's letterhead. $20 million. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. A mixture of shock, disbelief, and something that looked unsettlingly like calculation. Your little computer project is worth $20 million. I corrected him reflexively. It's a comprehensive cybersecurity platform for small businesses, Dad. Not a computer project. My mother joined him at the table, her eyes also fixed on the numbers. This island. Extraordinary, Lincoln. Why didn't you tell us your company was doing so well? The question carried an underlying accusation that raised my defenses. I sent you articles updates, and even that magazine feature. You never seemed interested. An uncomfortable silence followed, broken, when my father suggested we all have dinner together the following Sunday. We should celebrate your success as a family, he said with newfound enthusiasm. Marcus and I exchanged glances, both sensing the abrupt shift in my parents' attitude. We gathered our documents and left shortly after, with me reluctantly agreeing to Sunday dinner. That was weird, right? Marcus asked as we drove away. Your dad looked at that offer like he'd found buried treasure. Yeah, I agreed, an uneasy feeling settling in my stomach. Suddenly, my computer games are very interesting. The Sunday dinner invitation turned out to be more strategic than celebratory. When I arrived, I found not just my parents, but also Trevor, recently returned from Chicago, and an older man introduced as Gerald Hoffman, the family's longtime attorney. Alarm bells immediately rang in my head. Why is your lawyer here for a family dinner? We just want to discuss some family business matters, my father replied with forced casualness. Let's eat first. Throughout dinner, conversation remained superficially pleasant, with my parents asking more questions about my company in one meal than they had in 3 years of operation. Trevor was uncharacteristically quiet, occasionally exchanging meaningful glances with my father. After dessert, my father cleared his throat. Lincoln, we've been thinking about your company's success and the potential sale. How do you know about the potential sale? I never mentioned that. My father waved away my question. The point is, we've realized that as family we should have a stake in this success. Gerald Hoffman opened his briefcase and removed several documents. We've prepared some paperwork that would formalize the family's interest in SecureSmall technologies. I stared at them in disbelief. Family interest. What are you talking about? My father leaned forward. You were raised with family resources, Lincoln. Your education, your upbringing, the values that made you successful. All provided by us. The way we see it, SecureSmall is essentially a family business. Trevor finally spoke up. Plus, you developed your initial business concepts while living in this house using the family internet connection and electricity. The absurdity of his statement might have been comical if not for the serious expressions around the table. I looked to my mother, hoping for some sign of reason, but she avoided my eyes. Gerald slid the documents toward me. We're proposing a fair arrangement. Your parents would receive a 30% ownership stake in recognition of their foundational support, and Trevor, 10% as a family member with business experience who can provide valuable input moving forward. 40%. You want 40% of my company for being my family. The room seemed to tilt as the full impact of their demand hit me. A company you refused to invest in when I came to you for help. A company you dismissed as a computer project while funding Trevor's failed restaurant. My father's face hardened. That's not fair, Lincoln. We've always supported you. No, you haven't. I stood up, unable to contain my outrage. You rejected my business plan. You laughed when Trevor called my work computer games. You've shown zero interest in my company until you realized it's worth millions. Trevor leaned back in his chair with a smug expression. Family is family, cousin. We all deserve a piece of the pie. I turned to him, incredulous. You've never contributed anything except condescension. You lost my parents' entire investment in your restaurant. and now you think you deserve part of my success." My father's voice rose to match mine. "Watch your tone, Lincoln. We're not asking for anything unreasonable. Parents naturally share in their children's success. Share in success. Yes. Demand ownership of something they ridiculed and refused to support. Number." Gerald attempted to regain control of the situation. "Perhaps we should all take a moment to calm down. These negotiations can be emotional." "Negotiations," I laughed bitterly. "There's nothing to negotiate. The company belongs to the people who built it, Marcus and me, along with our employees and legitimate investors who believed in us when you didn't." My father's face flushed with anger. "If that's your attitude, we can settle this legally. You used family resources during development. We have grounds for a claim." The threat hung in the air like a physical thing. I looked at my mother, who still wouldn't meet my eyes, then at Trevor's satisfied smirk, and finally at my father's determined expression. "If that's how you want to play this, then we have nothing more to discuss." I walked toward the door, stopping briefly to look back at the people I'd once trusted implicitly. You know what the saddest part is? If you had just been happy for me, genuinely proud, without trying to cash in, I would have helped you financially anyway. Because that's what family actually does. I left the house with my father shouting behind me about ingratitude and family obligations. The drive home passed in a blur of shock and betrayal. When I finally reached my apartment, I called Marcus to warn him about the situation, then Natalie, who came over immediately. "They can't really do anything, can they?" she asked, as I paced my living room. "Legally, their claim is absurd, but even a frivolous lawsuit could delay or derail the acquisition. CyberShield won't want to inherit a family dispute." The following days brought sleepless nights and anxiety that began affecting my work performance. Marcus stood firmly by me despite pressure. My father had actually called him directly, attempting to convince him I was being unreasonable about family obligations. Most disturbing were the anonymous calls several clients received, suggesting our company was experiencing instability and might not be able to maintain service continuity. We couldn't prove it was Trevor, but the timing seemed far too convenient to be coincidental. As the family I was born into threatened to destroy everything I'd built, I realized I needed to take decisive action to protect the family I'd chosen, my team, my partners, and our shared vision. After a week of sleepless nights and consultations with our corporate attorney, I made a decision. Instead of hiding from the conflict or allowing it to play out through expensive legal channels, I would confront it directly, on my terms, not my family's. I contacted my parents and requested a meeting at their home, specifying that our corporate attorney would accompany me and that Trevor should also be present. My father agreed with surprising eagerness, likely misinterpreting my willingness to meet as a sign of capitulation. On a Sunday afternoon, I arrived with Patricia Winters, our razor-sharp legal counsel, who had previously worked for one of Boston's top corporate law firms before starting her own practice. My parents and Trevor sat on one side of the dining room table with Gerald Hoffman between them. The family attorney looked considerably less confident than he had during our previous encounter. "Before we begin," I said calmly, "I want to be clear that this meeting is being recorded with everyone's knowledge as agreed via email." Patricia placed a small digital recorder on the table and activated it after receiving nods of acknowledgement from everyone present. "Lincoln," my father began, "we're glad you've decided to be reasonable about." I raised my hand to stop him. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to present facts and give you one opportunity to resolve this situation without lasting damage to our family relationship." Patricia opened her briefcase and removed several folders, distributing them around the table. "The first document is a timeline of SecureSmall's development, with particular attention to funding sources and business decisions," I explained. "You'll note that on March 15th, 3 years ago, I formally requested $75,000 in investment from Thomas and Margaret Walker in exchange for 15% equity." I turned a page in my own copy. "The next section contains a transcript of that conversation, during which you, Dad, called my business concept a computer program that nobody could touch or see, and rejected the investment opportunity outright." My father shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. 2 months later, you invested $100,000 in Trevor's restaurant franchise without any apparent due diligence and later added another $50,000 despite clear indicators of mismanagement. Trevor started to protest, but Gerald placed a warning hand on his arm. The next section contains documentation of SecureSmall's development without any financial contribution from the Walker family. This includes our initial client contracts, office lease agreements, and employment records, and all established without family resources. I continued methodically through the evidence, including emails and text messages in which my parents had dismissed my business or praised Trevor's failing restaurant while ignoring my company's milestones. Most damaging was a recorded voicemail from my father to a business associate describing my work as Lincoln's computer hobby that would never amount to anything substantial. My mother was quietly crying by this point, while my father's face had gone from confident to ashen. Trevor looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Finally, I said, turning to the last section, our attorney has prepared an analysis of the legal validity of your claim to ownership based on family resources. Patricia spoke for the first time, her tone professional but with an underlying steel. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, I've reviewed your claim thoroughly. Not only is it without legal merit, but pursuing it could potentially expose you to countersuit for defamation and tortious interference, particularly regarding the anonymous calls to SecureSmall clients suggesting business instability. Trevor suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Additionally, Patricia continued, any legal action would require discovery, which would involve a comprehensive examination of your financial records, including the failed restaurant investment and subsequent second mortgage. Gerald Hoffman cleared his throat. Perhaps we've been hasty in our approach. The Walkers simply wanted to ensure family interests were protected in what is ultimately a family matter. A family matter, I repeated. Was it a family matter when my parents rejected my business plan? Was it a family matter when they funded Trevor's restaurant instead? Was it a family matter when they showed zero interest in my company until they realized it was worth millions? The room fell silent. My father finally spoke, his voice subdued. What do you want from us, Lincoln? I want you to sign this. I slid a document across the table. It's a formal acknowledgement that you have no ownership claim to SecureSmall Technologies now or in the future. Gerald reviewed the document carefully before nodding reluctantly to my parents. And what do we get in return? Trevor asked boldly, earning a sharp look from both attorneys. You get the opportunity to repair our family relationship, I answered honestly. And that starts with acknowledging the truth about how we got here. After some whispered consultation, my parents signed the document. Trevor initially refused, but relented when Gerald advised him he had no standing for a claim anyway. As Patricia gathered the signed papers, I remained seated. There's something else I want to say. Everyone looked at me expectantly. Despite everything, you're still my family. I'm proceeding with the sale to CyberShield. We've accepted their improved offer of $22 million. After investor payouts, I'll be receiving about $8 million personally. I looked directly at my parents. I've already arranged to set up a trust fund of $500,000 to secure your retirement and pay off the second mortgage. Not because you deserve it or because you have any claim to my success, but because that's what family does for each other when they can. My mother's tears flowed freely now. My father looked stunned. Trevor, I continued, turning to my cousin. I'm not giving you money, but I am offering you an entry-level position in our customer support department. If you complete a proper business management course, it's honest work with growth potential if you earn it. Trevor's expression cycled through disbelief, offense, and finally, a grudging consideration. The acquisition proceeded smoothly after that. Marcus and I retained our leadership positions, guiding our creation into its next phase of growth. The company culture we'd built remained intact, and our team continued to thrive under the CyberShield umbrella. Rebuilding family relationships proved more challenging but not impossible. We started with weekly dinners, where business talk was explicitly banned. Gradually, my parents began to acknowledge my business acumen, sometimes even asking genuine questions about my work. My father never fully verbalized his regret for backing Trevor instead of me, but I noticed how he started reading technology news and making efforts to understand my industry. My mother was more direct, pulling me aside one evening to apologize for not believing in me when it mattered most. Trevor surprisingly accepted the entry-level position after completing his business course. He struggled initially with the structure and accountability, but slowly developed into a reliable team member. Our relationship remained professional rather than close, but the toxic competition dissolved over time. Natalie, who had stood by me through the entire ordeal, accepted my proposal 6 months after the acquisition. We bought a beautiful home in Cambridge, close enough to visit family, but with healthy boundaries in place. Perhaps the most meaningful outcome was the foundation Marcus and I established to help young entrepreneurs without family backing. The Early Believer Foundation provides seed funding, mentorship, and emotional support to promising startups whose founders lack traditional support systems. Looking back on this journey, I've realized that success isn't defined by vindication or proving others wrong. True success comes from creating something valuable while maintaining your integrity, even when those closest to you fail to see your vision. Family support is a gift, not a right. When it's absent, you build a new family of choice. Mentors, partners, teammates, and friends who believe in you when your blood relatives don't. And when success finally arrives, you recognize it as the product of your own determination and the support of those who stood by you when it wasn't convenient or profitable to do so. So what about you? Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own vision? Did you face resistance from those who should have supported you first? Drop a comment below and share your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more about navigating the complex intersection of family business and personal growth. And if you know someone struggling with similar challenges, share this video to let them know they're not alone on their journey. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the family you choose is the one that helps you become who you were always meant to be.